We're on number 20. All right. Pause though. Um, it's streaming, but I didn't set up the screen capture properly. All right.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh,
Welcome back, number 20.
welcome to Motive Podcast. All right. Yo, dude, anyways, as I was saying a few seconds ago, so my friend Roni texted me,
Yeah.
and I've been having this consistent feeling of like how I'm barely missing my margin, and
Hmm.
it's been really like bothering me. Like I'm super scared that it's like a sign telling me that like you really need to get this out of your system, otherwise there's something coming, and if you miss it, it's fucked. You're
That sounds
truly
about
gonna
right.
be.
Sounds like how it
Yeah,
typically plays
so
out.
it's been hitting me so much like that, and I keep getting reminded of it. And my
Yeah.
friend Tony just texted me like, "Yo, you on campus right now?" And like
Yeah.
3 hours earlier, I was planning on going on campus to record for this pod, and I inevitably decided I wasn't going to do that, and I cleaned my
Bro,
room
he
instead.
could have been in there like the all in when they have like the people in the
Yes,
background pull up and they're like, "Yo, he's my friend Elon Musk." They're like,
exactly,
"Yo, here's
bro.
my friend Roni." Right?
We can have our boy, bro, our the future Prime Minister of Canada, been
That's right.
right up on here, bro. We catched them
Yeah,
young,
we're all up in his pockets
and
already.
evidently I did not do that, and bro, I just like that's been a common theme in the past week that I really need to change my act up, otherwise I'm going to miss it. And I feel like that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what I want to talk about. But firstly,
Please.
I want to show the setup for the lore, bro. We've been
Oh yeah.
recording. We have been recording this. Let's see it. We've been
Okay.
recording
Oh.
this podcast on here this whole time, bro. This
Oh.
is
Oh,
this
what?
is
I
the
did not
whole
know about
setup.
this. I did not know about the ring light. Okay.
This has been I saw, this has been like the
Yeah.
entire setup, this whole pod, and I say that because I feel like we're gonna change it, but I
Oh
really
yeah.
want to remind us of the early days, you know. I really want to put that in forth because I
Yeah.
can't shake this feeling that
Good shit. Good
shit's really
shit.
about to change. Like I really do
So
think stuff's gonna change.
so I'm not really on the same page there because I'm becoming a much more logical, analytical person. So, but nonetheless, my on the other hand, my lore is probably even more like scrummy than yours. Even
What do you
though,
mean?
even though numbers wise, my living conditions are much more expensive than yours because yours costs nothing. But like just the way that it looks right now, because like this place kind of looks like a prison cell when it's not like powdered up, which is
Yeah,
why
without the posters, bro.
most people
That was
put
what I
up
was gonna
posters and
say,
shit.
bro. Where's the
Right.
posters at?
So I mean, you can just look at this bed, right? Like, it's like it's some on some college shit. So, anyways, everything's packed up. I'll actually photo because this is really sick. Uh, wait, this is sketchy. Never mind. Because what's really sick is there's a time lapse. Unfortunately, it didn't actually fully play out, but because my phone died, which is more evidence that I need I need a
Shit!
camera, but it's like really sick, right? So
Did it cut out before your phone died? Like, did it cut out before you knew your phone died?
what's that?
Did
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Did your
yeah, yeah.
Yikes.
My phone was there for a while, but still got some more shit in.
Oh
Right.
shit.
So it
That's
would have
sick,
been
bro.
really cool, but anyways, of course. So just quick tour. Got some Prada all bundled up.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Yes, sir.
The couches, and the thing is, I have to pack light always because, I mean, I'm just traveling always because my IRL presence is required in so many different locations all at once. And even though my heart resides in Kitchener-Waterloo, I mean, unfortunately, business
You
calls,
know,
family calls, right? So I just
of
have to
course,
put on, one of my pair of Gucci shoes, and then,
of course.
just grab a suitcase and cut quickly. And it's like if I don't have enough time to pack everything, such as one of my three Armani suits, then I'll just have to leave it there and buy new ones. And hopefully they can donate it to like a local Salvation Army or something. And
Yeah,
of
see,
course,
that's what I was gonna say, right? Because you're so generous,
I'm a
and
charitable man,
I
right?
I can really feel this because like so many lives depend on us, right? Like in the future, like we're gonna be inspiring the kids, all the children.
I'm gonna be inspiring Roni's administrative actions as the prime minister.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna do some lobbying, and that's exactly how we roll. The fate of pretty much the world lies in our hands. So millions don't make themselves, and we're gonna be making them. We're gonna be making much more than that.
That's absolutely right. I just wanted to mention that the golden asset right here.
Mm,
You know, this is like this is like what like to an immigrant like uh I don't know like a McDonald's spot that they rented or
I was about to say
like a food
Visa.
truck. Yeah, it's like a visa to an immigrant, right? Like it's their ticket to prosperity. Sorry, I guess
Mm.
I lined that up so hard that my mind completely went off when you started talking. But yes, we will be in everybody's pockets, and well,
Oh,
their
of
money
course,
is in
of
ours.
course.
Yeah.
And you
But
know what?
anyways,
Speaking of that, we have
yeah,
to
I got
get to that
out of there.
point.
So go ahead.
And
Yeah.
I've just been super critical of myself very recently.
Hmm.
And what was once kind of anxiety and low key, um, I guess self-pity turned into great realizations. And so for that, I'm grateful that I'm always hard on myself. But I realized that, God damn it, I realized
The
that
setup
I'm
is
broke
fucking up.
and shit needs to change. And you know, bro, like, man, I just this responsibility is coming at a fast pace, and we really have to make sure that we can adapt to it, and
Okay.
moreover, just assume more responsibility than we're given.
Okay.
Like, I just look around and I'm just like, bro, what the fuck am I still doing in this room? Moreover, why have I not gotten all the sophisticated shit that I'm supposed to be having, bro? Like, there's just so many things that has been on my mind that I should have accomplished already. And man, what I was gonna say was that I just realized so much more that truly people are going to rely on us, and already that I see like it just feels like this looming wave of
Can we get
duty is getting
some
put up on it.
name covered examples?
Name
As in
covered examples.
name buzzed out examples.
Well, I mean, like I just don't. I know that I'm gonna have to take responsibility for my family for one. Like
That's true.
that's a very very obvious one, and more and more I get asked favors to be done in regards to like actual ability, because of
The
just,
pro
specific
bono
knowledge.
programming.
Exactly,
Pro bono
exactly. And
programming.com. It's a it's it's a
I was thinking of making some services
click
like
this
that, but
click this link to get your free program, and then just redirects you to Code Academy with a message. Stop asking for shit and just learn how to do it
yeah,
yourself, dumbass.
yeah, yo, why hasn't anyone made like firms of machine learning programmers or shit like that, bro? Like, why does that exist? Like, why don't we have
What?
programmers like lawyers?
What do you mean?
Like, they have there's like huge lawyer partnership firms and shit. Why don't we have that for like programmers?
There
Why are
are.
people like
It's
in-house?
sorry. Did you say in house?
Yeah, people usually have in-house programmers and
No,
in-house
that's
machine
not.
learning experts.
That's not what machine learning. Yes, more so because it's applied
Well, that's
in less instances. But
well,
in terms of web
until now.
development, yeah,
Until now.
that's true. It will be more, but I think with machine learning, at least for the first wave, will be through online services, much more
And that's why
of a
I think, and that's why I think
low
someone
contact
creating
service.
something in terms of pro bono service like that, like a big actual firm, would be much more
Why
valuable
does it have to be
because
big?
it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be big at all. It could just be someone who's very lucrative in that, or a
So this is
collective
the
pool of
thing.
talent.
So this is the thing. Like let's just take it back to web development. As I'm sure you know from your experiences at the
Hmm.
start of the university year, there are plenty of web development firms, and if you are on a website, you can always scroll down and try to figure out who built it. But the realities with the the biggest websites is that most of them are like think about e-commerce. Most of the biggest e-commerce brands are built through contracts with actual web development firms rather than just through Shopify. Um, like, and I've
Exactly.
been looking into this. Like, for example, I went on like Kim Kardashian Skims and tried to find who built that website. Evidently, I couldn't. Now the thing is, when I looked through their tech stack through one of like those websites that figure that out, Shopify is in there along with 100 other things. But all of that is managed and the code base is managed um, and actually built in the first place, as in like the front end of it, by these web development firms that'll charge 60K, 80K, 90K, 100K. So they're they're profiting well just out of sight because there's no point for them to be public. They don't get um, a lot of leverage out of that, or at least it's not. They don't see it as worth it themselves. However, what's important in terms of creating a big firm is that um, uh, there's just it's not it's not like an overtake kind of industry. The same way that lawyering is probably not like a huge like monopoly allowing industry because the barriers um, the the barriers to competition are just
That's
not there.
why I think it's super lucrative to do something like that because the actual dominance hierarchy exists among the startup people and the people who are doing the
Algo.ai.
contract. Well, of course, I'm not doing no pro bono cases out of my pocket, okay? I don't want to put a lot of my time into that because I obviously want to build shit.
But the thing
But
is that if it's serviced, then that would be sick. If you, I can't wait to see the ad that Algo.ai served fucking 1,000 kids in Africa some charity got served for free or whatever. That's gonna be great business. That's gonna be great marketing. I'll love
yeah, no,
that.
I definitely think
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would be.
I'll
And that's the
I'll
case, right? Like
I'll go on
these
the shoot
services.
to take some photos with the kids and serve them water and whatever and put it
Yo,
on
but
my
these
Instagram and shit.
people are seeing AI and they're coming up with ideas, so inevitably it's going to be pretty it's going to be something that people will want to do. Like people
What?
there's already so many people who are driven by this and they want to go into that. And it's super
Want to go into
unsaturated and
development?
it's, yeah, development of AI. Like it's going to be people are already imagine that is it going to be lucrative, so people are steering their careers towards that. And
It's a gold rush
of
for
all
sure.
imagine of all the people who for one know something about it and they want to create something and they could just
Yeah,
and they have a lot of capital. It's pretty easy for a firm to get clients that way.
yeah,
um
yeah.
so I don't know, maybe it's something that people want to explore. Me personally, I don't necessarily want to do it because I don't
Wait,
want to.
can we understand this business model more? Are you just talking about like
I'm
AI
talking about
development
like a
agencies?
lawyer for, yeah, a lawyer for like an AI, but like in the lawyer firm kind of sense. Like they
Okay,
get
okay.
clients, they build their
In the web
products, they
development
get
firm kind of
contracted
sense.
again. Exactly.
Yeah,
Contractors, you know. But
yeah,
like a more sophisticated
yeah. More
organization of
sophisticated
contractors.
than gig work, which means that it's more attractive to bigger,
Hmm.
more legitimate firms who actually have money to spend. So you're not just competing down to zero on Fiverr.
Exactly,
Instead,
exactly.
you're handling big
Exactly.
contracts. And I agree that actually I see the opportunity in this because where web development is obviously highly saturated now, and really the capabilities of these big firms are getting more and more eaten, like squeezed by platforms like Shopify with
And
AI.
Wix.com and
Yeah,
Square
yeah,
and
because
whatever.
as
And
those
the thing
become
is
more
with that
capable.
is that the thing is with that is like it is similar to like actual grunt work. I mean, obviously there's an art to it, but like,
AI is
building
also
something
grunt
like,
work in this sense.
yes, of course, but like if I'm building you something that's like an intelligent program that is going to be like making decisions for you, that's going to be something much more appeasing than someone designing an art or even if it is the same, they'll pay a lot more for it because it could be integral to their product or integral to how they manage.
Websites are still art because some people also have to design the look of the website, which comes down to marketing. And I think the pinnacle, the kind of top of the pyramid of these firms are the ones that will pretty much design your whole product for you
My
or
first
help
thought
you.
with
It's an
that is
agency.
that it doesn't take a it doesn't take like a crazy engineer to know what a good website looks like. And
Engineers don't need to have any clue what a good website looks like. They need to look at a mock-up and implement it.
no,
So it takes a
exactly.
designer.
That's my point. It doesn't take like it's more or less like I would say it could be a mixture of natural talent and experience to create like incredible designs. And I think we rarely see incredible innovation in that regard. But
Oh
right
yeah,
now
I would
with
agree with
something
that.
like with machine learning is that it does take incredible engineering feats to actually accomplish something that is aligned with your goal.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
that's where I think the money would be at in that regard.
Yeah.
But
And
you
what's
know what?
interesting is you see so you've seen with ChatGPT becoming popular, you've seen like big consulting firms start to offer these products, these services to their clients to basically consult them on how they can implement these. So it'll be interesting to see how much that plays out between more so engineering oriented firms versus like business consulting oriented firms, because so it might even be the engineering firm is contracted through the consulting firm, because because especially when the task of engineering becomes so hard, that's when you get closer and closer to making more sense to break up the task of setting up how this works from a business strategy standpoint to how we actually implement it. And obviously big consulting firms don't necessarily have it within them to hire a full suite of engineers, but that sounds like an opportunity for innovation to me.
No, that I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I just, like I just see more and more that people who aren't don't have the technical skills reaching out to me and also other people and speaking about how like even on Twitter Spaces they're like they have a lot of ideas on how they could leverage intelligence in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways. And
Yeah.
I think people who don't think of ideas for themselves or just also um understand that there's a lot of people who need this, who genuinely need it. It could be incredible investment for people who will actually care to do that. Maybe that's something I would do. Maybe that
What,
is to a degree is what
learning
I'll
it, or
go. What?
having more tools, learning it or having more tools to be able to implement them through no code?
Oh, that's what that no, I was saying like just genuinely coding these things for them, like actually providing a service for them like that. Obviously
Yeah,
my goal is to have a no code option for that or have something that allows people to do that. But
but I
I don't
mean,
know, I
it's
just think
just,
it's pretty interesting.
yeah, and it is a very noble mission to me to hugely accelerate the trend and the kind of vision that Naval summarizes, that sounds sometimes pretty stupid, of everybody being able to implement their ideas. However, it is beautiful, and I like the mission of trying to empower the world so that everybody can implement their ideas as little as possible. And you've seen it throughout the history of the past 25 years how much of a superpower coding is. And I sent you a few weeks ago, we talked quite briefly about how between like 1999 and let's say 2008 or whatever, it was like the reason that it was kind of like Revenge of the Geeks or whatever is because it's not because even coding was so hard or whatever, but it's just because these people, it was actually easy enough for like just like geeks, like let's say even you and I, to pick up without having to go through a very kind of sophisticated engineering path. At which point, you're not a geek, you're a fucking scholar, and it became kind of like a superpower. The thing is now, with all these different technologies built up, you do have to be much more sophisticated. Like, not anybody can just go and build out a platform. These software engineer salaries are ridiculous, and we also talked about the kind of um, backup, like back order of software throughout the world. So even though we've had all these advents, I'll reference Shopify again, it's clear that there is still amount, a ridiculous back order of code to be written. And it's actually kind of like, not in terms of importance of the problem or human impact of the problem, but in terms of just like how how much it seems like Silicon Valley applies to this to try to solve this relative to how much there still is. Like it seems like we've gone so far with no code, and yet, first of all, the bar gets higher and higher. We went from fucking JavaScript and HTML to fucking 30 different technologies in your stack to now AI, which is like almost like a PhD field, right? And at the same time, people have more and more ideas. People are more and more interested in it. And at the same time, every company is a technology company. So it is it
Mhm.
is very it is a very noble mission to empower everybody with true no code. And it's just one of the problems of our time.
Mhm. I like how you put it as empowering the people because um I think it definitely is that, and I think the trend that we're seeing is that more and more people are empowered to do things at smaller scales with less amount of people. And so, it's going to be super interesting in um how stuff like this gets to play out in the future and how people begin to give that sort of, I imagine it as like that Rick and Morty level of proactivity in their life through these new technologies. And I think AI is one of the first steps to go, like living that Tony Stark life, speaking with Jarvis. So yeah, Algo's definitely could be oriented through that. I think the goal was always to have some sort of way to allow people to create these models on their own because, like frankly, it's just a gold mine for data, but also it is a great way to get people to actually create stuff that they really want to use. Um, and I also think that I also do think that it's going to progress towards of less hierarchical organizations of services where like things like contractors and gig work are going to be a lot more valuable because the output of the single person is going to be a lot more valuable, not only financially, but in terms of efficiency. It's going to be a lot quicker to just be like, yo, can you help me make this? I do think that to some degree we're going to have a lot more individuals creating a lot more value at scale. And once we have that, I can't imagine how much that growth will be. But until then, we're gonna have to continue to empower these people so we can have that sort of utopia.
And also
Because
empower ourselves through education, because clearly we're not at the we're not living in the scenario of the vision, which is I
of
don't need
course.
any skills in order to implement my ideas. In fact, it takes a lot of skills to implement my idea. Luckily, you and I are smart, hardworking people, and we also
Mhm.
take joy in doing shit. So
Absolutely. So
so
yeah, I
there's
agree
still a
with
ton
you.
of sophistication required
And
to
that
implement this
really
stuff.
comes that's like I feel like that's integral to the human experience though. I think what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna move away from having to focus your skills on pretty easily automated things to things that don't conform to work whatever work structure that we have right now. I think people are going to be practicing more things like large scale design, um, and they're going to be implementing art in more ways than we could imagine in their actual products, and it's still going to
Yeah,
work perfectly. We're
yeah,
gonna have we're gonna have just like I just can't like imagine all the kids in all these places who are super ambitious and just genetically gifted where they have all these ideas that they wish they could implement, which is like the classic story of struggling humans across the world. Um, but not only having them have to sort of bypass all the actual struggles that comes with um, leaving their circumstances by giving them all these new technologies. Like, for example, they don't have to. I mean, obviously, education would be super important, but like from right from the get-go, they could implement their ideas through artificial intelligence that could sort of min-max the pros and cons of whatever they're trying to implement. They can find the shortcomings of whatever ideas they're trying to get search for the impacts of whatever. And honestly, like it's been so much harder imagining the possibilities of AI than it has been thinking of what's not possible. Like I can't grasp how much power this could have. And it literally is just like I'm trying to think of it as like think of what a human can do and think about automating that and scaling that 10,000 fold as though like we are building the pyramids again. I think it's akin to that. If we're like imagine building the pyramid. Imagine trying to organize all the people getting into that. And then imagine not needing to do that and you can just go ahead and make it. That sounds so incredible. That's truly does sound like some Rick and Morty's Tony Stark type behavior. And I can't wait to see all the Tony Starks of the world come up through and take the crown from Elon. We need more Avengers up in this bitch, you know what I mean?
I mean, they're not taking the crown, but they'll be up there.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see what we have to say about that.
Hey, I don't know if you choose your Chamath's and Jason's take about the Starship launch.
Um, no, I don't think I was paying attention when I was listening to that podcast.
All
I
right,
only
well,
listened to the AI. I only listened to the AI part, you know. I had to focus on what mattered.
yeah.
What did they say?
They talked about how SpaceX is the only company that is able to consistently and with a high quality send cargo to space, and they're the only they're they're leading by far, seemingly the only real prospect to be able to consistently and cheaply get to the moon and to Mars. And these launches for um, companies and government companies, for example, they want to send uh, a a satellite to orbit. These launches are worth well, right now they're worth maybe in hundreds of millions of dollars, but um, they talked about how Jason mentioned, obviously he's an angel investor, so he talked about how small companies will be able to implement their own, in the same way that I try to implement a poster store on the back of Shopify, and Shopify is the platform, and then there's some competitors, but Shopify is the leader. Um, Small companies, startups will be able to implement their own innovations on the back of being able to launch a satellite or whatever to orbit. However, number one, I mean, Shopify is like a monthly subscription at like $60. Launches to space cost millions of dollars. And also, where Shopify is a platform, so as sophisticated as a business is, and we know it's sophisticated because, I mean, look, because you can just look at the stock. I mean, the financials are still all over the place, even though it feels like fuck, it's just a website. But I mean, it's still tough. With SpaceX, I mean, obviously that's probably one of the most sophisticated businesses we've seen to rise of our time. And as I was talking about, they have these barriers where the nearing competition, such as Blue Origin, is nowhere near the ability to do that. So basically, they don't hold like a monopoly in the sense of there's barriers. Like once somebody builds up a rocket, I mean, there's
Mhm.
competition, but they're the only ones serving that whole industry. So I mean, you can see how that sounds like
Which is super interesting to me because
Elon is a
like
trillionaire now.
how do they make their profits? I mean, Starlink is now I think they're where they get a lot of their profits. But
No, I
like
don't think
before
so.
then, where how else would SpaceX make
So
profits?
it's
Like,
contracts, starting with government contracts, because governments, for example, would send spaceships because they want to send
oh
satellites
yeah,
to orbit.
right,
But
right,
again,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of companies want to send their own satellites to orbit, and I'm sure you've heard about how many satellites there are up in
Is that
space.
what they're doing though? That I thought that was just like Starlink. Like those
SpaceX,
those satellites are just
SpaceX,
Starlink.
to my understanding, SpaceX is besides Starlink. Just let's say forget about it for now. Even with that, to my understanding, SpaceX is not just a R&D company that is losing cash.
Well, I
They're
didn't think it
they're
would be. Otherwise,
they're
how would they make out all that
I'm
money?
right. So I don't think that the majority of the revenue is coming from Starlink. I think it's from these. what is collectively hundreds of millions or probably billions of dollars
But
of
that's what I'm wondering. Like, what is
revenue.
exactly where they get that money? Because to me, it just seems like a scaled up version of a rocket club at a high school. Like, what's the
Yes, it
difference?
is.
As in,
Oh,
like, I want to know
because
exactly how it is that they make this business. Because when I was growing up, um, and even like hearing about this, like like when I didn't understand how the world was, my
mhm.
preemptive belief was that this is like why hadn't this exist before? Like I just didn't think it was a surprise to me when I heard of SpaceX. I was like, yeah, like this should have been here ages ago. And I think that's the same thing for a lot of like these innovative companies. Like it just makes so much sense for something like considering how long ago we started sending people to space, it just didn't make sense to me that there was nobody who was willing to take on that task of
So
creating a private company to go to
there's
space.
there's 62. It's this Google says it's $62 million per launch right now. So and it can increase for more complex launches. But again, I mean, I could just imagine that, or I could make a guess that over time, number one, over time, there has just been more natural demand for launching satellites to space, including now from the private sector, which didn't exist um, in the kind of 1900s, the late 1900s and early 2000s. But also with the opportunity to do it cheaply, there is more demand from that as well, which is like we can call that like non-natural demand, as in now that you have the opportunity to do it, you'll say, oh, well, actually, I do have this. It's just that if you never fathomed that you could do it, you wouldn't think about it that way.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't know who owns the satellites up in up in up in orbit, but what I am pretty sure of is that SpaceX is regularly launching rockets into space, and they come
Are
down
they
and
are
they
they
land.
launching satellites? Is that
Well, they must be
exactly how
launching
they?
something. They must be launching something,
Well,
some
I
sort of.
thought they were just they are launching. I thought that was purely Starlink though, because it makes sense that, Big Govy is giving them their funding because that's I would actually assume that's the bulk of their revenue. But
Yeah, but again, it's not just from like a R&D progression of the human race or progression of American supremacy standpoint. I think it's things that they would have expected NASA to do prior
yeah, okay, yeah, they
or
do. That's true.
in
They
another
do
world.
just send satellites to space. So that damn
And
props to that.
but if you see the way that that rocket ship, the one that they used to send, I think it's called like Dragon or whatever. Like if you would see the way that it comes down and the legs open, it looks like a simulation. Like it actually looks straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Oh, it's
It's so
so
cool.
incredible.
The way the legs
It's
open
so
is
incredible.
it looks. You would think it's a sci-fi movie if you didn't know that it was real.
Honestly, to me, like it
That
didn't
should be
sound
just
surprising
coming
at
down.
all.
So
Yeah. To me, it actually didn't seem surprising at all. Like I just expected this to be here by now. Same with thing with a lot of other innovations. Like I guess I was always a proponent that like with Unity we'd be able to complete complex tasks a lot faster, but it's just crazy that even a small company overall, like respectively, that SpaceX is, how much they're able to accomplish. It's crazy how there's been so much funding all around the world, yet the lack of demand, or perhaps maybe just a lack of courage, we don't see a lot of those crazy innovations being made. And
I might encourage you to dig deeper into more uh like deterministic, if you will, terms because
of
to
course,
say
I'm naive
crazy,
to be saying that. Of course, it's
yeah.
naive for me to be saying that.
But the thing is, as well, solutions come out of looking at something that's crazy and then figuring out why, and then only going with that. Like the same way that I could say something's crazy about society, but then like I think you probably agree a lot with me on my thing about that. I'm like, well, this is just how it is, so you can't call that crazy. That's like hypocritical or whatever. So it's like the same thing. It's not crazy. It's how it is.
What, the fact that SpaceX was able to innovate, or the fact that there's a lack of innovation?
Both.
Both, you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I
Crazy,
mean,
crazy is not a productive way to look at it because you're not, because in order
well, I
to
never looked at it as crazy. I thought it was more crazy that I just thought
cra-
I just
crazy
mean
is not a
surprise.
productive way to look at anything. I don't mean to be nitpicky. That's why I said like by the way,
No, I know. I don't
right?
even think it's
I'm just
crazy. I was never surprised about it. And I just it's because like I do believe that the progression of these things are quite slow. Not to discredit SpaceX. They're
by
super
the way, I have to
super
go in 20
incredible with
minutes.
that. But they should have been they should have been incepted like long before this. And
Why?
I think that's the case for a lot of more things because we've known about the physics for so long. Um, maybe it has something to say with how much wealth has existed since then. I actually do believe that that's a big proponent. I think there's been a lot more wealth in general, so maybe that's a reason why it hasn't been created. But I just think that in the future, that more people are going to come to realize this, and there's going to be a lot more courage in regards to actually innovating. Because I think these previous notions, like what I'm saying is that I believe that there used to be a idea that it was too dangerous to innovate, and I think quickly we're realizing how much you are safe from that, from whatever dangers you could be because like millions of dollars has existed, engineers have existed, the science has also existed, um, particularly for physics, and computation is getting a lot easier, and um, I just think that we are changing we are changing our ways on how we view science into that more playful idea that we used to all have as kids. And I'm really excited to see how the innovation is going to take us because especially with AI now and now that we automate all these computations, especially with intelligence, we're going to see that a lot of the ideas we have as kids are going to be made in effect in our future. As in, while I was not surprised that a space company should have existed by then, I also shouldn't be surprised because I had all these other ideas when something else comes in. And I've been trying so hard trying to think of like something like that that just seems like it should exist. Like I mean, something like really effective 3D printing is something that I always thought should have been very capable of becoming a thing. And obviously, it won't be. There's going to be a lot of innovation and engineering
Excellent,
that goes into
excellent and
that.
equitable childcare where ECEs get paid a livable wage that credits their university degree along with others, and families can also afford it uh,
Yeah,
across the
like
nation,
issues
for
with
example.
geopolitical issues that still exist as well.
Right.
Like
So,
those should be ended.
so if I can say something to this, because
Mhm.
having taken a history course this semester in university, um, and generally what they kind of try to drill into you in some sense is that uh, is that the unsophisticated view, the natural one to come to, is that things were inevitable, and you you completely understand this as well. I'm not completely
No,
shooting at you.
of course, of
It's
course.
just
No, I know.
um, I'm trying to build off this. Whereas in reality, reality as in the perspective of many scholars, let's say, or whatever, um, innovation, both in business but even in culture and society, is not at all inevitable, and in fact, it takes great great measures of sophistication for shit to actually happen. It takes a ton of work over hundreds of years for things to happen, and most of work over hundreds of years gets kind of nulled out to zero, and then one thing will win over time. But the point is, um, that's a bit off topic. The point is that it takes a shit ton of effort to actually make meaningful change, and whereas where inspiration is what I think we're seeing now, which we haven't seen for a while from people like, for example, Elon Musk. When it comes to actually implementing things, my general perspective is that it's actually incredibly difficult, and that's actually the reason that a lot of that we didn't have that we didn't have that encouragement for a long time
So perhaps I
because
misspoke.
SpaceX was sure.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I see where you're going with this. Perhaps I misspoke. What I truly see is that so perhaps it wasn't only that the courage didn't exist, but moreover that the capabilities just were limited. And with whatever we have right now, especially what we have right now and what we're going towards, and as you said, obviously it's not inevitable that these things are made. However, I think it's really important that you said most work tends towards zero, and one thing is shines above the rest as being valuable. I think we're going towards a point where that is less and less of the case. We're going to see less and less of people's input going to be less valuable because of education, but also access to means of making impact. And the more valuable these people are going to become, the more that their work won't be pretty
I would
much
agree with that.
for nothing.
I would agree with that. But what I'll add is that I'm not going to talk in years when I say very far away, but let's just talk in
Yeah, yeah.
tenacious input. The
Mm-hmm.
gap is huge, right? Because a lot of my thinking throughout my later teen years and up until now, and this is the same case for millions of people similar to me, is based on like one Naval Ravikant podcast, really, and he just summarizes a lot of things that we've loved in this culture. But again, it's a vision, and and the disconnect that I think a lot of people who are, let's say, older and kind of more like typically boring and kind of less excited about innovation, the disconnect that they face is that it's completely irrelevant right now to because once they face actual problems, they see that this is completely not the case. And so I'm not going to talk in we're far away in terms of years, but I'm just going to talk we're far away in terms of tenacious input, because like tenacity, to pick a word, is I think one of the things that drives us forward, because you talked about the capability wasn't there or whatever. Okay, when we think about like rocket launches, what was the incentive for the government? Well, one of it was this kind of like national collective pride and the will to be supreme in other countries than other countries. And this is, for example, something that we've seen throughout history, you might agree, uh, pushes innovation forward. And I might conjure that the reason that this pushes innovation forward is because it creates that incentive not only for a leader to be like, fuck, I really got to make this shit happen, but all the way down. If every worker in the country is like, fuck, man, like, I need to, like, this needs to happen, there's a shit ton of tenacity on going there, right? But then what's the thing we saw with Elon Musk? What we know is that SpaceX was developed over 20 years and it was extremely hard and there was a lot of setbacks faced, and that it was just ridiculous how hard it was, right? So we know Elon to be a very tenacious person. So that's why I'm talking about this tenacious input. And most people simply do not have the incentive. And when you talked earlier about um, the kind of risks that people assume with innovation, the reason that um, the reason that I move to this kind of idea of tenacity more rather than risk is because I think it has there's actually a balance here, and it kind of builds up to the same thing, which is your risk to reward ratio. But there's the perception of risk, which can be lower or higher, but then there's also the tolerance of risk, which can be lower and higher, right? And if you have a huge will to succeed, then your tolerance of risk also gets higher. So you're tackling the one end, right? Which makes people go into it. However, even if they overstated their risk in the first place, they still will set face back. It's still kind of a relatively big risk. It's just, is that risk worth it? And for most people, it isn't. And this is kind of the problem you get, right? Like some people maybe are just like, fuck, man, like I just really want to be rich or whatever fuck, or they just really want to do. Like we, for example, know that Elon was one of the people who happened to really, really, really want to get to Mars enough to actually face all this risk and face all these setbacks. Just like during times of military, there is such a dire need for innovation, like, for example, GPS or nuclear war power. And the same thing with, for example, the US getting to the moon and space programs. There was so much dire need for this that the risk tolerance was accepted.
No, that's actually a really good point. That's a really good point. I absolutely agree. And
Thank you.
I think I think what's an interesting commonality between all you that just said is that especially with the Tenacity, is that from the examples that you listed, excluding SpaceX, is that you could always sort of see that there is a quote unquote enemy that's driving the goal towards it, whether
Yeah.
it be like the incentives that you discussed, like for example the government having a supremacy over other countries, makes absolute sense.
Dark
And that
motivation.
was the case for the space race. Yeah, that's the case for the space race, case for war, especially during the war. That's where that's where radio and all these other things were invented
Yeah.
at en masse. um and I think this may be a little bit on the side, but I think it's super interesting that on maybe this is just on the psychology of people, but we see so much, and I think this is a little bit why we see some extremist views towards this. But it was funny. I went on Twitter and people were complaining about, and there was like news articles as well,
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Elon is doing so bad. Like this is
Yeah.
shit. Like they're just preying on his downfall."
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to me how bad, for as long as humanity has existed, how bad they want to have an enemy. Because in reality, he's on our side, and he wants the best for whatever he desires. Maybe he actually just wants a good
Crazy or
legacy.
human nature?
I actually human nature. I actually think it's I think it's not human nature. I think it's some silly games people play because they want to feel that they have control. Because frankly, I don't think it's human nature to go against your own people. And I think that's
Unless you
what
think
we've
they're,
lost.
unless you think,
That
no,
they're
no,
not
no.
their
Sorry, I
people.
agree with you. I agree with you. However,
I
it
know.
plays in,
Unless they think that they're not your people. And that's
right?
exactly
Which is
the
not
case. And
actually
I
an
feel like
unless. Oh, okay, it is an unless. Yeah, but
exactly. And what I'm thinking is that like, we've lost it's interesting how we've lost that sort of sense of it's funny because we have more value as individuals than we've ever had before, and we're tending
yeah,
towards that. Yet
yeah,
I think people are imagining that they have less and less value on the outcomes of the world, and they feel less empowered. And as a result, they they have sort of either of indifference towards how the outcomes play out, or a resentment to those who are actually trying to make a change. I think it's a false sense of security
yeah,
that our
yeah.
our modern world has provided to these people. Like, oh, fuck the free world, oh my
As much as I
God.
like to say, oh, it's nuanced, John. There's segments and people have different. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And it's quite unfortunate because
Increased depression rates, a lot of just the kind of historical length of comfort and being provided to creates,
disproportionately
right.
weird
There's
rates of unemployment,
right,
and
right.
chosen unemployment, not because of lack of jobs. We have a labor shortage because people don't want to go to work, which is crazy. It's crazy. And obviously, it makes sense because people just don't want to work. And it's a weird, it's kind of a funny way of how it played out because I think this I heard this somewhere before where it's like if you give somebody like there's two different kinds of people. If you give them one person, if you give them a way to make $1 million, they'll say, "Oh yeah, like we could do this 24 hours a day every single day and we'll make $24 million." But if you do that to somebody else,
Yeah.
they'll say, "Oh, I only have to work 1 hour a
Andrew
day."
Tate could even find a way to split that between genders.
You see that this is where the innovation comes, huh? But but
We don't
like
condone that though.
it's of course not. That's why I changed it up. But it's weird that it plays out in that regard where all the value that we're able to produce and the more empowered that we are extremely as individuals, that people tend to not make more value at scale. We just think, okay, because this is the case, I don't have to do that. And I really don't think it's about like they don't like align with certain things, or they don't have like a shared belief towards it, or they're inspired by anything, etc. Like I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's that laziness. I think they're frankly lazy to experience these new things because of how
Yeah,
comfortable
I can agree with that.
that we
Because
are, and
I've really experienced it
they're not
all.
shown any
I've
reward
been
for
very lazy
exploring
at
it.
times this year, so I personally understand what's that like now, which I've never understood before.
But I really
So
don't think it's
I
like
have that.
yeah, exactly. Like I've seen so much. Like I think we talked about this before, where the effort being put into a lot of these institutions is frankly abysmal. It's genuinely abysmal.
What do you
And
mean?
like you just look at a lot of people who are employed at companies or just actual companies in general, and the
Oh,
way that like look at how Elon went into Twitter and how he had to shit and get rid of everything and clean it up from the ground up to make it productive. And he was able to eliminate 80% of the workforce and provide more value than it did before.
I don't
And
imagine
that's
that's 90%. I don't imagine that's the majority of companies. Also,
me
Twitter
neither. Me
is
neither.
valued at half of what he bought it at.
I don't think
Although
exactly. Yeah, you're
there's
right.
obviously market movements there, but I
But I
think
do
it has
think
a lot to do
it's
with incentives.
there's too many people though who are allowed to make these abysmal decisions and moreover
Mm.
have this culture of indifference be spread across
I'll
the
add a
organization.
I'll add a what's it called, like an example. That's
Mhm.
just an example, but whatever. Did you see that Six Bus post about the bus driver who hit the brakes on the kids, and then he got like I think he got like almost like charged or maybe sued. So there's a Six Bus post.
He's been charged with
He's
30
been
counts
charged
of
with 30
child
counts of
abuse.
child abuse, which
Yeah.
which I thought was like ridiculous because because well, what went to my mind is that if which a lot of people thought as well, obviously, is that if he would have gone into a crash, then and the kids would have fucking got like shards of glass in their eyes or whatever. Obviously, that would have been his fault. But also, I remembered like my days in the bus, and I would actually cry because the bus driver was mean. Like I would generally cry because I was sitting at the front, like I was like timid, like I was doing my job right, but then there's like kids in the back being all foolish and shit, right? But the point is that like it's fine to be a kid, like for example me at that time, and to have this very kind of generous take, which is why are you being so mean? That's fine. But as a as a government lawyer, like that's parent, like that's ridiculous, right? And this the reason I thought of this is because I thought about how you were saying it's crazy that people or we shouldn't be allowing people to do this, and I'm like, yeah, just like we shouldn't allow people to be dumb at school. We should bully them for it, right? So so, but it's sort of the same idea. If you can get away with laziness, then well, obviously, people do. Just like I've gotten away with a whole lot of laziness, and I see it, and it's gonna be great because um, when the world finds out, how productive I am, I'll be able to say, look, I was literally there. Like I've actually done some fat ass shit, dude. The amount of times that I've like gone through a fucking Walmart, not looking at like the fucking aisle of cookies and shit, but not just like buying them, like literally counting down like the dollars amounts between my bank account and the cookies to think about whether I can I afford this, like, right, instead of going and making some fucking money at home, right? So I
I've been in the same
so
spot.
I get it, I get it, but I also am seeing in myself exactly how I'm changing this going
Mm.
forward and how I'm going to become a person who values hard work despite the output, which I mean we were probably the last generation to get any seed because I'm seeing myself now, right? And I can see how this value has not been ingrained into me clearly, and even if it was in like very very early days, it was wiped out. I mean, it's been wiped out over the past 8 months. Like I've seen the kind of shit that goes on around here, right? And
Hey,
you
you got
said
three
it
minutes.
too. Thanks. And you said it too. Like for example, you've gone to different unis, whatever. But and then I think like I don't know. I guess like me, I'm always like, oh, like status quo is okay. But in reality, like I wonder the kind of shit that's going on with the K to sixes right now. Like,
Yeah.
bro, I'm sure there's got to be no discipline right now. Like, there's got to be
No,
no discipline.
absolutely not. There has to be like
You
some
get disciplined
crazy
for
shit.
disciplining.
But you can see that though. Like you genuinely can see that on how people behave. Like I don't know. I remember in 12th year we would look at like the really younger years, the new ones, and they'd behave radically, and we'd be like,
But the crazy
what
thing
the
is
hell?
that we were in ninth year, and I remember teachers telling us about how like the principal, what I'm saying, old school Wendy Verow, was like looking at and they're like, maybe it's because you guys came here in middle school, so you didn't have that shift. But like some of like the people who are like like the older people are like going around looking at y'all, and they're like, damn, y'all are fucking abysmal. And they're right.
They were. And maybe, like they learn on their own, but I
And
do think like we're
yeah,
taking a lot of that. I've been feeling so much lately that I've been so detached with the like what goes on in the real world. Like
really.
it's yes, definitely. And I mean like I still don't actually see it to play out. Like maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. Because what I was gonna say is that we don't have many assailants nor enemies, and that's why we're looking for a need to have enemies, or that's why the corporations are capitalizing on making an enemy out of other people. But maybe we don't have actual enemies, but I still think that we're about to be entering a place where these kids and especially us are not prepared to deal with any sort of adversity. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see because frankly, I don't know
Yeah.
how I would manage if I was in a position of actually having an enemy, like even in business of pure competition. Like maybe sports would be is a better example, but less and less kids are also doing sports, which is
Hmm.
we're taking
Yeah.
away that like
Yeah.
natural sense of competition from people.
Yeah.
And we're frankly just dumbing ourselves down. Like I truly don't know if I'm capable of dealing with an assailant that is out to get me and try to
Yeah.
destroy my company. I don't know if I'd be able to make rational decisions about that. I guess we'll have to find out. But
Be fucking
I've
scared
been feeling
shitless.
so detached lately of what's going on in the world, and I definitely think that it's going to be limiting us. So,
Yeah.
with all this, I do think that we're going to have to do a lot of reflecting. We're going to change a lot in
Oh
the
yeah.
next few months.
100%.
But I'm super
100%.
excited,
There's no
of course.
question. We have a lot more to say on this. Like you and I both. We have a lot of takes on this. But
Of
the
course.
one thing that's for sure is clear is that like we're gonna solve this problem in ourselves, and then we're gonna
Mhm.
push it back onto the rest of fucking society. And if they don't get it, we'll just adopt like 1,000 people. Incubate some other babies scientifically or
Of course,
whatever.
of course. We'll clone them.
Anyways,
We'll
yeah.
get the baby, the test tube
Listen,
babies.
rest assured. Have no fear. Motive boys are here. All right, we're gonna get Hadi back in this bitch for one, and yeah. All right,
Exactly. Eid is over. We're ready to rumble, and the summer's
that's
about to
right.
be crazy, bro.
Motive
Anyways,
summer coming up. All right, yo, this is the 20th one, bro.
yo,
It's been
wait,
good.
listen though.
What's up?
This might be the last online recorded meeting for the rest of the year, bro.
That's true. That's true. We got
Might
4 months of IRL shit coming up. Potentially. Again, might have to
potentially.
hop on the jet for one of them, but might have to get out for
It
one of
could
them.
be,
But
and it could be till the end of time. Like we could get a studio in LA, and
that's
we could pull up in
true.
San
That's
Fran.
true. That's right.
Motor
That's
real
right.
estate is getting incorporated very soon. So
Oh yeah, we're working on the deals right now. All right, no home is safe. Even if you live in a little shithead house, don't we can fucking upscale that shit in like 5 months, bro. So
no home
even if
is
you
safe.
listen, if you're
They said
living in
your
the
hood was a
trap,
pot of gold,
all
and
right,
we
bro, y'all
go
might
cash it
you
when
might have to be
nobody's
living
home.
living to the outskirts. All right, all the cities are being considered. All right, you might have some shit in your land underneath your house that you would never know about, but we're just using extreme next level satellite technology to figure that shit out. Like you might have been living on a pot of gold this whole time while you were collecting fucking welfare, but then we'll go buy your house for like 20K. Anyways, it's
We'll buy
crazy.
you out. We'll put you in the
Oh
projects
no.
in Barhaven,
All right.
and it'll be good.
Yeah.
Anyways,
We'll help you out.
you'll
All
have
right.
fun, baby.
Love you, bro.